The Chicago Bulls have another test in front of them today, facing the Indiana Pacers in a game which they'll be without DeMar DeRozan, Derrick Jones Jr., maybe Alex Caruso. Who's going to step up? We're going to see the rookie Dalen Terry get meaningful minutes once again. We're also going to talk about the big three as a whole, Casey Johnson's comments on Give Me the Hot Sauce, and is it time to break up the big three? We're going to get into all that, plus a voicemail right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans, welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central. I'm the host here, Haize. You can follow me right off the top at CEO Haize, but let's get right into it. The Chicago Bulls face the Indiana Pacers today. The Bulls have lost 4 games in a row. Can they stop the bleeding today? Derrick Jones Jr., DeMar DeRozan are already listed as out. Alex Caruso is listed as questionable, and also Goran Dragic is listed as doubtful. And then we have Miles Turner and Daniel Tice both listed as questionable for the Indiana Pacers. And what I'm going to say is take all that, ball it all up, throw it away. It doesn't matter. This Bulls team needs to find a way to compete. And whether it's the rookie Dalen Terry, whether it ends up being Malcolm Hill, God forbid, whether it ends up being Marko Simonovic getting a call up from the G League, it does not matter. This Bulls team needs to find a way to compete. They need to find their heart. They need to execute the X's and O's part of the game correctly. They need to execute on defense. This Bulls team gets no more passes from me in any stretch of the imagination. You have still 2 former All-Stars on your team in Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. You need to get the job done. Yes, we're a depleted team. Yes, DeMar DeRozan is our clutch player. Yes, all those things do hold true. We need a point guard. We need some bigs. All those things are still hold true. I don't care what lineup Billy Donovan throws out there. I don't care what it is. I need to see some heart and determination from this team today. If they understand the moment, if they understand what they're fighting for, and the fact that if they still want to make the playoffs, this is what they have to do. There's a lot of talk. I've had it here. We've had it over on Locked on Bulls. Has this team given up on head coach Billy Donovan? And maybe so. There's a strong possibility that they have. When you look at just how deflated this team is in themselves, listen, this does not leave much to hope for when you see a team that goes out there and their body language tells you it's over before it even begins. If this Bulls team wants to get the fan base back on board, if this Bulls team cares about us as Bulls fans, they need to come in and execute today. That's just what it is. No more excuses, no more any of that with this team. I don't have the space in me to give. I understand if they do lose or whatever, but you need to play and face with some heart. You were in Indianapolis, that's not even too far from home. That's not too far from the crib. It used to be that almost was still a home game for the Chicago Bulls. You got to execute tonight. It does. All the other things don't matter. We need to see a team that comes in and plays with the level of urgency that they understand the moment. We need to see a team that comes in and plays like they give a damn about the game of basketball. We need to see these things from the team. Billy Donovan has to also coach this team. Just going out, letting it be isolation ball, whatever, it's not going to work for this team anymore. This team does not have it, whether it's the skill level, whether it's the basketball IQ, whether it's whatever. We don't have it if you don't coach it. You need to coach. You need to coach Patrick Williams up. You need to put him in the correct situations. We need to see Ayo Dosunmu look like he's not afraid to hit a shot, like he hasn't been shooting and scoring his whole life. We need to see that from this team today. A 5th loss in a row right now with where Bulls Nation is. Just be prepared. We're going to go into All-Star break all on fire. And I said it on the last post-game show. I would not be surprised at all if the Chicago Bulls lose the next 2 games leading into the All-Star break. That will put the Bulls on a 6-game losing streak going into the All-Star break, right? And don't get me wrong, this team deserves that. This team deserves to be on a losing streak. This team deserves to look like a piss-poor ass team by the effort and the heart that they decide not to play with. They deserve all of that. All the preseason doubt, all the hate being thrown towards the Bulls, if you want to call it hate, all of the critique, all of the doubt. This team has earned every single drop of it with the way that they have played and the lack of effort that they've played in. We have teams and we see players that are coming in their rookie seasons giving more effort than players making $40 million a year. That is not going to cut it. If you want to be part of this Chicago Bulls organization, we need to start seeing like you give a damn about having the Bulls across your chest, because guess what? That matters to us, right? That matters to the Bulls fans that have been Bulls fans for 15, 20, 30 years. That matters to us. When we see that Chicago Bulls across the chest, when we see that black and red, white and red, whatever version of it is, that matters to us. And it's disgusting when we see a team play like it doesn't matter to them, right? When you get paid to do this. You guys are getting paid to play this game. We're not getting paid to watch. We're not getting paid to support. We're not getting paid to buy tickets. We're not getting paid to sit here in front of cameras and microphones. When we care more about the logo than you guys do, it's a problem. And that's what we don't see from this Bulls team. And at this point, everybody's head got to roll. If the season ends, no matter how the season ends, heads have to roll. Let's be clear here. Regardless of this game against the Pacers or not, it's time for heads to roll. And we're going to talk about that next. But at least tonight, against the Pacers, we need to see a team that executes. We need to see a team that acts like they have some sense of urgency. We need a team that comes in and plays defense like we've seen them do before. We need to see all that stuff from this team. You know, I've been past, and it's funny because I've written back and looked. Since 22 games into the season, I started saying I'm done predicting wins and losses. That's how unpredictable and up and down and bipolar this team has been this season, that 22 games in, I said I'm no longer predicting any wins or losses for this Bulls team. That's crazy. And that just really it perfectly encapsulates what this season has looked like for the Chicago Bulls. A win against the Indiana Pacers does nothing to change that, but it can make a step in acting as actually showing like you give a damn about the game of basketball that you get paid to play. Right? We're not looking for this win against the Indiana Pacers. I don't care if you win by 60. It's not going to change the way that we view this team, and it shouldn't. We shouldn't be, taken over by one win, but you can at least show some goddamn heart, right? Let's at least get that. We'll worry about everything else as it comes, but can we start showing some damn heart as a team? Can we do that? Let's see what the Bulls do tonight against the Indiana Pacers. Now, moving into the next topic for today, Casey Johnson was on Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast, and he said that he, not necessarily saying that he expects DeMar Zach to be moved, but he does not think that they are as untouchable as what they were. And that led me to believe this. It's time. This offseason, we have to see one of Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, or Zach LaVine moved. And my pick is DeMar DeRozan. And I know some Bulls fans are going to get tired, but he's our best player. He's this. We're paying $40 million for... I get all that. But when you look at the game of basketball and the fact of assets, I talked to you guys yesterday about the cap situation that the Chicago Bulls have found themselves in. We have 9 guaranteed contracts, and we're over the salary cap, but below the luxury tax with just those contracts. $28 million to DeMar DeRozan. He's still a veteran that has shown that he can play pretty well. He's probably going to net you the most back because it's no long-term money. You got to keep in mind, Zach LaVine with the season that he's had, and some teams are still going to believe and should believe in the talent of Zach LaVine, especially if they feel they're going to be giving him a better situation. But if you're moving any one of the big three, Vooch is not the problem. Vooch, he's the only one of the big three outside of his defense, but the way that he plays, I didn't expect defense from him coming into this situation. But looking at what all the big three and what they give or the lack thereof that they give, Vooch is the one that I think he's earned his contract extension. DeMar DeRozan, to me, it's time for DeMar DeRozan to go. And I know not everybody's going to agree with that. I'm not saying that that's the solely best answer either. Honestly, you probably need to look at moving 2 out of the 3 of them, and depending on which 2 you move, you probably need to move the third one too. But if I don't see this team going full rebuild, I see this team going on in a deep retooling. And with that being said, if they go on that retool, the way that I see it, you move DeMar, you get a couple of firsts back, or even just the first. You clear out some salary. Hopefully, you get some non-guaranteed deals back, or some deals that are easily cut, or whatever else. At that point, now you are operating as a below the cap team. You then can have more spending power in free agency if you can convince any players to come to this hellhole of a town that we have going on, coached by Billy Donovan. But then you do that. You see things and having a more traditional 3 in there, and you really change your lineup. As I said before, DeMar DeRozan makes the way that you have to play as a team a very specific way. That's just is what it is. Again, that is not a critique on him or his skill level. That's just an honest review of the player. A team with DeMar DeRozan as your leading scorer or whatever else, it's very restrictive on how that team has to play. Ideally, and we talk about modernizing the Chicago Bulls offense, for this team to play modern, you need a team full of people that can shoot to a degree, that have the versatility to do those things, that don't really operate just in the mid-range. And by bringing that in, just by the nature, if you replace DeMar DeRozan with still a player that's a solid passer and maybe even just a 3-and-D person, not necessarily somebody you need to run heavy plays for, isolation plays for, it can modernize the Chicago Bulls offense. Now, that is still pulling a lot on Billy Donovan to ask, is he even going to run a modern offense at all? Because it doesn't seem like he has a propensity to do that. But you do have to look at those things. And so I think that it's time, and the way that I look at it is that it's time. I love what DeMar has brought. I love the mindset that he's brought. I love the fact that he's taking younger players under his wing. I've talked about the lessons that they've seen from DeMar DeRozan. Whether we see the results of them or not now, it's going to be something that's felt for years and years to come in the Chicago Bulls organization. But to me, and this is under the framework that if AK goes in the retool area where he's trying to still have a playoff team and just kind of recalculate the type of talent and the makeup of the team, DeMar is the best bet to move. Now, that's not to say that Zach can't be moved, especially with the rumors that we heard that they were maybe taking calls on him with the New York Knicks. So that's not to say that it's just going to be DeMar or should only be DeMar, but the player that I'm looking at moving, in my opinion, that moving away from one of the big three going into this offseason and before we start next offseason, to me, it has to be DeMar DeRozan. Nikola Vucevic is an unrestricted free agent. At the most, then you can get a sign and trade back for him. You don't usually get much back in those type of moves. It's possible that you can get a first-round pick back, depending on if it's a contending team. But then at that point, it's another low first-round pick. How much protections are you going to put on that? So that's the way that I look at it. I do think we see a world in which it's Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic coming back next season, and DeMar sees himself on the way out. Now, maybe he goes into a better situation. Maybe we do send him to the Los Angeles Lakers for a combination of Mo Bamba and whatever else if they're willing to move off those contracts. There's a chance that may happen. But it's time. I think everybody's starting to realize that too. This offseason is going to be a huge offseason of change for the Chicago Bulls, one way or another. And go and check out my video yesterday if you didn't see it, in which I talked about the Bulls' salary cap situation. When you just look at having 9 players guaranteed under contract and already being over the luxury tax, and we know we need a serious talent injection to this team, it really does paint a picture that you have to move one of your bigger contracts and then separate that money over multiple players, hopefully, and then you have a team that's kind of more formidable. But something that I don't usually do in the middle of the week, we actually got a voicemail. This one's from Marcus. It's a great voicemail, so I'm going to go ahead and play it now.
Hey, what's up, Haize? It's Marcus. I'm outside, so I apologize if you hear wind in the background. But yeah, I'm calling just to talk about the trade deadline, just the current situation of the Bulls. So I'm really disappointed as a Bulls fan. It's like this trade deadline, the way this team is playing, kind of just sucked the life out of everybody who is considered a fan of this team. And honestly, this is my theory on what the current situation. I believe that so we know when AK and Eversley, when they first came into the office, they made a lot of moves. They was very aggressive in the beginning. What I believe is going on is that I believe that Jerry Reinsdorf is very he's looking very closely on the moves that the Chicago Bulls is doing regarding the money situation and also the current state of the team. I believe that AKME does not have the full control that that is necessary for them to have at their positions, at their what they're doing. I think that AKME is very in a bad situation because if you paid attention to the press conference, you can tell that he kind of was fed up himself. Like, knowing what he did the first season, you could tell that he made a lot of moves in that first season, but looking at the interview, he kind of just, his whole demeanor has changed. It just looks like the life is sucked out of him, especially from that interview. So like I said, I believe that they want to do more for this team, but it's just the ownership that is putting a hold to the Bulls, changing everything about the organization and stuff like that. But the Bulls should really just stay in the middle. Like, we can't blow it up. We can't do no big trades. We should just stay in the middle and just make this season as a scratch this season off, because we own our picks for, I believe 2024 we have our own pick, and 2025 is a top 10 protected. So we have our picks for the next 2 years. So if it comes down to it, we can just be the middle of the pack this year, and then next year we can really just, if we good, we good. If Lonzo is healthy, we can move on with that. But if not, we can always resort to the tanking method and getting those picks, using those picks next year's draft in 2025, top 10 protected. So it's not over as a Bulls fan. It's not over for us watching this team and looking at how we play. Everybody stay hope, see red. Like I said, I know the feeling of what's going on with this team, with everybody, but there's still hope because there's so many different methods that can happen following this season. This season is just a scratch. So yeah, that was my thoughts on this team. See red, go Bulls. Peace.
And this is a great and insightful, and this is how you know somebody who's aware of the franchise that they follow. To ask, is AKME's hands kind of cuffed by ownership? Absolutely, to a degree. I do think that if we had a more traditional ownership that was not adverse to paying the luxury tax, we would have seen Chicago Bulls do more at the trade deadline. You can take on more salary. I even think we would have then used our full mid-level exception this past offseason, which would have sent us into the luxury tax, and we probably would have had some better younger players in that case across the board. Yes, ownership absolutely does have a place in where the Bulls are right now. It's no way around it. They absolutely have part of that fault. And then when you look at, does AKME have the necessary control to build a contender? That's the biggest question. I said on a couple of episodes ago that regardless of whatever framework your ownership gives you, as a GM, a president of basketball operations, it's your job to then operate under that framework and put the best team together that you can under the limitations that your ownership places in front of you. So that is what AK has to do. So we can talk about Reinsdorf and the limitations that he brings all day, and they're valid, right? That's not to say what Marcus said was not valid. It is very valid and accurate if you follow this team, you know. But it's still up to AKME within that framework to then say, well, this is what I can do. This is how I can build it, consider under that. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Are their hands tied a little bit in that case? Absolutely. But the ownership is not changing. The Reinsdorfs aren't selling this team anytime soon. And so what AKME has to do in that case, you have to operate in the limitations that the ownership group has given you, and you have to find a way to build the best team possible regardless of that. Is it hard? Absolutely. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Are we going to see a couple of more versions of the team before AK finds the right combinations and gets it right? Probably. Is it going to take some luck as well? Is one of our young players going to have to develop into near stardom to do it? Yes, when you look around the league, usually teams that they see a player turn into a star while they're still on a rookie scale contract, and then that helps them build that team around it. Then they maybe go forward and go into the luxury tax, things like that. So yeah, the team, and it's unfortunate. And I don't envy the situation that AKME is in, but he accepted this job. And if he did his research, he should have then known that this is going to be how this team operates. This is how the ownership group gets down. It's simple as that. They got to find a way to do it. And we'll see if we have the changes and the new way that AKME hopefully attacks. And hopefully we do have another aggressive offseason from the Chicago Bulls front office. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. If you're on the YouTube side, if you're on the podcast side, I'll tell you how to get your thoughts in here in a second. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.